All right, we are on air. It is Thursday, July 23rd, and this is our weekly developer meeting. Before we get started on the agenda, let's go around and do some quick introductions. Nate, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, I'm Nate Lampton from Oakland, California. I'm a core committer and yeah, just here to do the weekly thing.
Great. Gregory?
Hello, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Central Greece. I'm on holiday, but I'm looking to help in any way that I can if I have time.
Lampton, also Oakland, California. First on our agenda today is that we have a new contributed theme, the Pellerine theme. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. Was released this week, so anyone interested in that, it's up. That's all I have for other than core stuff, because our core stuff list is quite long today. So let's turn it over to Nate to talk about those changes.
All right, we'll see how much I actually end up talking about these issues, since a lot of them are ones that Jen has been active in. So first of all, we'll go through the issues that are affecting the current release of Backdrop, which is 1.16. 1.16.2 is our current version, with 1.16.3 being our next bug fix release. We don't really have any driving factors to push out a release in the immediate future, although if some of these accumulate, then it might be worthwhile making a release for them. So the first up is update.php. There's an error about install.php under circumstances where if your staging directory is empty, then it gives you kind of a scary message and makes a poor recommendation. And so this is to fix the messaging of that situation. The issue is 3846. Jen, it looks like you filed the pull request, and I think that it currently just needs review.
Yeah, it's pending on me as well to test this. I'll try to reproduce the actual use case when this is caused. So I need to reproduce that on a vanilla and then try with Zen's fix.
No problem.
So code looks okay. Just testing.
All right. Next up is site gets stuck in maintenance mode. And specifically, this is when you are running a module self-update or an in-core update. It's issue 3956. Looks like this is some mixing up between using the state system and using the config system. I looked over the code and it looks reasonable, the corrections that it made. There may be some change in behavior from how it was originally intended. It's a little bit hard to tell what it was intended because we're making these changes and it behaves differently from the way it did before. But we're not quite sure what it was intended to do before and what it's doing now. One takeaway from that kind of experience is that this is a situation that can occur when we don't have test coverage on something, because we can make the change and nothing passes or fails because we don't have it covered by tests. And I'm guessing that a module update is not an easy thing to test, but it might be. It is worth investigating if we can somehow mock doing a module update within the simple test processes to see if we can get that user interface under the control of test coverage.
Yeah, Jen, it seems that there's conflicts on that PR, so if you can just merge, and resolve the conflicts, I'll review it again.
Okay. Next up, visual regression in text format order on the overview form of text formats, issue 4407. This is the regression that we've had since 1.16 was released. There's still no code behind this, so 4407, I don't think it's even going to be difficult, but that needs a pull request behind it to fix the presentation of those text formats so that they show up in the right order. I don't think there's any other updates on that issue this week. Let's see, there are a number of things that could use some review. In addition to that, 2766, restore the views pager by date. This issue has been needs review for a couple of weeks now, and it really just, well, it needs some testing of the contrib calendar module to check it out with the core enhancements. And Doc Wilmot already reviewed this and said that the problem seems to be resolved. So I think that what he's looking for there is an additional confirmation to move that to RTBC. Gregory, are there crickets where you are?
Oh yeah, I mean, let me just I'll mute myself. Sorry.
There are also Tweety birds where Tim is. There's a lot
Yeah,
of people today.
It could be me. So,
Yeah, I have some geckos and some crickets. Yeah.
In fact, I'm late for the meeting because I was trying to catch a turtle. So I didn't catch it.
It's the best reason ever to be late for a meeting.
All right, let's see. So let's see. We also have PHP CS that we would like to automate our code checks, issue 3213. No updates on that this week. We have tried a couple of different approaches, and I think that we're rolling back to kind of the let's just find one that works and go with it. But I think there's a lot of prerequisites for that we need to get our coding definitions updated within Coder module, because I really don't think that we want to build out some automated integration that is dependent upon an old version of software. So kind of before, I mean, we can work on the automated portion of this, you know, having a task runner download and install Coder and then run the code style checks. I think that that's worthwhile work there. But before we really can deploy this, we also need to update Coder module to make it so that it's using the latest version of PHP CS, because I don't want to build something into our processes that is already deprecated. Okay, let's see. There's a whole section in here of low-hanging fruit issues that Jen, you have brought up here. And all of these issues seems like they've had some work on them at some point and have just kind of stalled out, but none of them are really particularly difficult. So these are great. Let's go through them all one at a time. Do you want to go through them, Jen, or would you prefer that I keep going?
Sure. Okay. I was just trying to remember when I think I added some of these last week and some of them this week, so my memory might not be up to date on all of them. So the first one is to set a reasonable value for a PHP variable called max input bars. And this is the thing that allows you to have a certain number of form elements on a page. So when you submit the form, all of the variables get passed through PHP. And in Drupal or Backdraft, if you're on a page like the menu page with a lot of menu items, or the permissions page with a lot of permissions checkboxes, there's a lot of elements on that page, and it usually exceeds PHP's default value for this variable. And because we have the ability to set variables for PHP in PHP, I was recommending that we can test to see what the value of this variable is. And if it's not large enough for a backdrop site, we could set it for people. This is one of those things that's like, it's bitten me a couple of times and it's really hard to track down. And I feel like now that I know that it's a problem, I would like to prevent everyone else from running into the same problem. And so this is just a quick fix that should allow us to resolve that problem for other people.
Yeah. We should specify, it's been a while now, but we should specify what reasonable is. So we have been bitten by this in the GovCMS platform, in the menu management screen where they have the checkboxes for enabled and disabled. And then SaaS customers do not have access to the permission page, but we do as backend engineers. And if the site has like 6 or 7 user roles, and with all those permissions, it really becomes an issue. We have been increasing those to like 5,000 or 10,000 for some sites.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure if that's considered reasonable. So some people might hit that limit, but we need to specify what we consider reasonable. So I think that we should look at the default roles that we have, or maybe a couple more. What do you guys think?
I was thinking 10,000. That's usually what I bump mine up to.
I think that's
And
what
if you-
Pantheon sets theirs to for you as well. I think that that's the right amount that you don't accidentally run into it ever.
Yeah. So for the menu specifically, we looked into including the big menu, which has nothing to do with mega menus. The big menu module, which sort of like exposes only a portion of the menu section each time, so that it doesn't have a lot of checkboxes in a single page, in a single form. But yeah, my point is that eventually people get hit by this if they sort of like go crazy with these pages. You cannot have menu pages with like 2,000 menu items. Like it becomes ridiculous to manage, but some people actually, it's a requirement, so you can't stop it.
So it looks like that pull request still is in a needs work state because we need to include that number in the messaging. I'll take a look at it. It looks like Nate, you also had some recommendations about checking mod PHP 7.c in the HT access.
Oh yeah, just the pull request right now is structured so that the code comment says support PHP 7 as well as PHP 5, which is completely backwards. That it should be assume PHP 7 and then have a comment that says also support PHP 5. You know,
Okay.
like it's just backwards.
Okay.
That I think that's the only comment I had there. And then rather than just saying, hey, this number is too low, we should link to documentation saying how someone can fix it, because I think what we're trying to do is make it so that HT access sets that limit for them, which is great if HT access is being respected.
Yeah.
And if it's not being respected, it's overridden by their host or they're using Nginx or something like that. That's when the status report message will kick in.
I think that's a good idea. Greg, you're muted.
Notice that now, damn it, crickets. So my only comment with the pull request is why 10,007? So the pull request has the value set to 10,007. And it's not the pull request change that does that. There's another value.
Because it already says it for PHP 5. Yeah. I don't know why that is. I would guess that it's to make it clear that that's where the value is coming from, because it's such an unusual number.
Yeah. It would make sense if you're like, oh, this is a weird number, and then you like grep the code base, you'd be like, found it like right away. So I don't know, maybe we set it to 10,008. Not Drupal, it's Backdrop. Okay, I don't know.
It's one max vars better.
Moving on. The next issue here was to, by default on new installs from Backdrop, make it so that the search block doesn't say search, search, search. If we just hide the title, so it says search, search, then that makes more sense. But if it has the title and the label and the button all saying search in the same box, it's a lot of repetition of the word search. So that was just hide it by default. There's a setting, you can turn it off. We're just going to set the setting by default. If you want it back on, you can turn it back on. That needs review. The next one is to fix a bug with views ORs, which I think it bit a bunch of us when we first introduced the change to views that broke it. There's now a change to views that fixes it that we need to introduce back again. So this issue, I think, needs another review. We looked at it a long time ago, but I don't think it's gotten any attention since March.
What was the problem with it? I think we were stuck at something, like, was it testing? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, so the problem was we introduced some change to views that was like a security fix that happened to break the way ORs work. So if you like have one condition or another condition, that stopped working. And then there were a couple of fixes in the Drupal queue that didn't actually fix the OR problem under all of the circumstances we were testing on. So we were really hesitant to commit something that like fixed it for some of us, but not for everyone. And so I think the latest fix is a more recent change to views that fixed it for everyone. So now it's been long enough that we've
Okay,
got
yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I do recall going back to that the patches that were posted in the Drupal queue, and
You're like,
people were going back and forth.
this is
Yeah.
here, it doesn't fix it. And this is here, it does fix it, but it reintroduces whatever. Yeah, so it's complicated. And then the next issue we have, these are 3 that Indigo Exela posted. The first one is for CK editor not respecting language. So there's just a parameter that we're passing into the CK editor settings incorrectly. We're still passing language instead of lang code. Another one is the text on the user register form wasn't wrapped in T. So this is a correction to that. And then the last one is really exciting, PHP syntax highlighting. So on GitHub, if you have a file that ends in .php, the syntax highlighting works, but we have a bunch of files in Backdrop that do not end in .php that are not properly highlighted on GitHub, but there's now a way to tell GitHub which of your files are PHP files. And so this pull request includes that change.
I reviewed that. It only, there was we needed to add the .profile ones as well, and that's it. That's RTBC. I have marked it as a RTBC so that it's on a radar, but it needs this tiny fix. And I think, Nate, you're able to fix things before you commit them. So it's straightforward. Maybe you can just do that. The funny thing, if you look at his last comments, is that it wasn't working for Lauren when he was testing it. And then I tested it as well, and I go, but I saw it, and then I couldn't see it 2 minutes after. And then it turns out if you refresh the page enough times, then it comes up. Maybe it has to do with the way that GitHub caches things.
Huh.
And I didn't know what it was. And I go, what changed between when I tested and when Lauren reported the thing? And I go, oh yeah, I added a comment to the pull request. Could that affect it? So I removed the comment and then I re-added it. But it didn't affect it. It's completely random. Like you keep refreshing the page and it comes
and goes.
Yes.
Right, so that's the end of low-hanging fruit bug fixes for 1.16.3.
I have a couple of ones that I want to sneak in.
Okay.
Okay.
So one is 4478. So this improves on the feature that BW Panda has added recently in the autocompletes. So if you start typing see how we have a post that is called your first post. So if you start typing the word your, it doesn't come up. You have to type, sorry, post, it doesn't come up. You have to specifically remember that it's the thing, or the word first. So this fixes that, and it's just pretty. I'm not sure, Nate, if it has any impact on the database queries that run, like performance.
Oh yeah, that looks really simple. So the queries, I was thinking that you could make this better yet if it did, well, I'm not sure about better, but you could make it less strict by allowing any word to match regardless of its order. So you could say post space first, and then it would match on that as well. But that makes the query substantially more complicated because you have to explode out the words, and then you have to put a like statement around every single one of them and make a big or statement. This is just saying allow a percent sign, allow it to match the phrase anywhere in the middle of a sentence rather than right at the beginning. And it seems like an improvement. I would say maybe, well, I feel like maybe we should get some more feedback because it's kind of a change in behavior of like, how do you want it to work? You know, it depends on if you have a whole crap ton of content, whether or not this is helpful or not, you know, if you match exactly on the beginning.
Interesting.
Versus if you match anywhere, you know.
Like 100 matches, but not the one that starts with the word.
Exactly. So as you get like more loose with the requirements, you get more content that might not be the content that you were looking for. And so on a site that has a modest amount of content, it's going to be helpful to be loose with things. But on a site that's a lot of content, strict might end up being better.
Would you prefer that be a setting like in a panel of the certs settings that people can disable?
I think it should, it would be nice if it were adjustable so that for any given site, you could decide how it would work. I don't think it goes in search settings. That's the question, isn't it? Where would something like this go?
Because now, exactly, because now that I said it out loud, would it go in set settings? It's not sets. It's actually the autocomplete.
It would go
So-
in the site information page.
It would go on the what page?
Everything that doesn't have its place for it.
Jen and I have a branch against the system information page, which is like we dump everything there. So this was
Any setting you don't know where it goes, you just put it on the site information page. Fine.
Well, I would be tempted, Gregory. I mean, we are targeting towards, smaller sites. I would be tempted to say, we've had it this way for several releases and we've never tried it the other way. Like, let's have it be wildcard matches and then see if feedback comes in saying, I can't find the content that I'm looking for.
I can put a setting in either the settings PHP file or the core config that doesn't have anything in the interface, and then we decide later, so that we can still allow people to override it if they want.
Yeah, that's a good
But
idea.
where would you have it live though? Settings PHP? Wow, we can override settings, config settings in settings PHP.
Yeah, I would
so
put it before.
yeah, if you can add a comment, if you come up with a good place where that should live, I can do it. Because it's like the pull request is pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other issue is 4481, and Tim reviewed that and he asked the question. So I'll respond to that question. This is again to improve on BW Panda's feature. So the way that the text is presented in that drop-down menu is like completely like everything has the same text size and color, I guess. So it gets a bit distracting. And I've provided like a few variants there, and I ended up doing a last one. But if you guys prefer something else, like just let me know. It should be pretty straightforward to change the CSS. I think the main reason for the PR, the main goal for the PR was to add the classes around the actual match and the description. So after that, we can style it, and it allows people to style it however they want with their admin team. And Tim, to answer your question, I'll respond there as well. It affects every path field that is enabled to do autocomplete. It's in multiple places.
But it doesn't affect any other autocompletes other than the path matching one.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that looks great.
Yeah, the styling might be a little bit too generic. That it's just like if there's well, I don't know, maybe not. If there's a class of dot suggestion, then it's bold or possibly bold. And if there's dot description, then it's in gray and the font size is shrunk.
Yeah, so initially I started doing mockups, and then I thought of the places that we have the machine name as a description, and then I tried to sort of like mock the size from that, which is secondary information. But anything you guys like think it's better, like you can start playing with it in the sandbox. And yeah, if you think that the color should change or the font size or whatever, then yeah, we can just provide a screenshot and we can decide.
Yeah, I think maybe the classes just need to be tidied up a little bit, but this screenshot here of it being like smaller and gray for the small text, I think the mockup looks great, the last one. I think, Jen, you said the same, right?
Yeah, I really like the last one, and I don't even mind the classes.
When you said the classes, what would you expect, Nate? Like,
so in particular, so we're using classes like dot suggestion and dot description, and I can just feel Wes Rubalcaba like gazing upon me, frowning at that, because we use dot description in a bunch of different places, like in form elements, and if you generically styled dot description site-wide, you would accidentally hit this dot description that is used in an autocomplete. And so then you.
So would you like me? Yeah. Would you like me to change it to autocomplete? Dash
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. So you should use a more complete class name that is unique, where it's like, yeah, autocomplete dash description, autocomplete dash suggestion, so that we don't end up with the same class accidentally getting hit in multiple places.
And in the CSS, would you like to keep it specific, like include the ID and the list item thing in front of it, or just use the class name, the class?
Yeah, you should just be able to use the class name if you make it specific. Yeah,
Okay,
and,
cool.
and that avoids what Wes would call selector wars, where it's like you
Yep.
get increasingly specific because you can't get it targeted closely enough. So you want the stuff that's made to be overwritten to be the stuff that's in core to be the least specific as possible, which is usually just
Yep.
one level of complexity, just a class
And-
level.
And last, Nick, would you like me to call it autocomplete dash suggestion or path dash autocomplete dash suggestion? Because it's specific to paths.
Or it could just be path dash suggestion and path dash description.
Well, we're not even actually using path suggestion. I mean, there's not even a style on it, but it might be useful to have it there.
Okay, I'll go with autocomplete dash something, and then if you have a better idea, just let me know.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's a lot of nitpicking now.
We might want to use this in other autocompletes too. So maybe if we have it as autocomplete, then later on, if we find someone else, be like, oh, let's just use the same style we have there. And then,
Right.
Yeah. All right, I'll do that. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Yeah. Great issues, Greg. Do you have any other ones? Yeah, real simple ones.
I wanted to bring up one that may not be simple, but it can wait if we want to move on to other things.
No. Since we started, you go ahead.
And I had it open. Oh, just a second. I went and closed it. It's issue. This is one that's been around for a long time, but there is no PR, and I want just ideas on what I can do to move this along. It's issue 1259. This is
1259,
the
you said?
1259. This is when you make a custom block and you make a change in source mode. It's a CK editor issue. And you make a change in source mode. If you change it back, your change does not get recognized. I run into this fairly often myself. And this issue bugs me so much that I find when I'm talking to people about backdrop or like that are working with custom blocks and stuff, I will, like preemptively mention this to them just to save them time. And anyways, so I guess what I would be, my question would be like, some people, it looked like Larilyn and Olaf have like did some searching in the CT editor issue queue. I could go back and spend more time there, but does anybody have any like ideas on what I might be able to do to help move this issue along?
Wow. Yeah, this looks really horrible that it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
that it doesn't save. Is it caused when you click the source button and then make a change? Do you have to click the source button again and it doesn't save? Or if you don't click the source button, like if you leave it in source mode and then hit save, is that where the problem occurs?
Yes, if you leave it in source mode. If you hit the source mode again and go out of it, then it saves. So it's like there's an easy workaround to this. It's it happens to me all the time. I go into source mode, I make a change, I save it. It doesn't work, and I'm okay. And then I remember what it is, so I just go back and make the change and be sure to change it out of source mode. But other people have pointed this out to me. I think it bites a lot of people, and it's just a nuisance.
Do we have the source mode be sticky? Like if you edit a node and you switch a field to source mode and you save it, does it remember it next time that you edit the node?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
So this doesn't. It's only on blocks. It doesn't seem to be a problem on nodes.
Oh, okay.
At least like if I tried a blog post in a page today and that was not a problem. But if you create a custom block, that's where the problem is. And Olaf was suggesting if we can't solve this, can we force people to not allow them to save without switch not allow them to save in source mode.
Yeah, I find it strange that CKEditor just doesn't do that for you in the first place. Like why is it not always updating? It would be a good idea for us to find the discussion in CKEditor side, because I'm sure that we're not the first organization to encounter this, that it's not updating after every keystroke, which is kind of what I would have expected. But there's also one of these suggestions that Olaf put in here, the second to last comment in here, as to a Stack Overflow post, has an interesting suggestion that says, like, on the submit of the form, just manually update the text areas that have CKEditor on them. And that would be a good workaround for us. That would make it so that we don't need anything from CKEditor side. It also wouldn't hurt if CKEditor changed their behavior in the future, that if we had something that just synchronized CKEditor's value with the underlying text area, doing it again isn't going to hurt anything. So that seems like a pretty safe approach to take. But I would love to find within CKEditor's own issue queue why it's doing what it's doing in the first place.
Well, it sounds like then what I could do to help move this forward is spend some time in the CKEditor issue queue and try to find some more information.
I'm not entirely sure it's CKEditor's problem because it works everywhere other than blocks, which makes me think that it's an implementation problem on our side.
Like maybe it's something in dialogues, or
Yeah.
Oh, so it doesn't. This isn't universal. Like on the node form, it would work.
Yeah, it works.
Custom blocks only.
Tim worked on taxonomy term descriptions, but blocks for some reason it's not.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's okay. Well, maybe if it's not CKEditor, if it's not a global CKEditor issue, then maybe it has something to do with the way that we're submitting forms within dialogues. And I'll post a comment there because it gets a little bit crazy, because what happens is the submit button for a form isn't shown inside of the dialog, because the jQuery UI dialogues have a special location for where buttons should go, and it moves it outside of the normal dialog area into the button section of the dialog. And so what we do is we make a copy of all of the buttons, put them into the special button area, and then with JavaScript, when you click the save button in the dialog, the save button copy using JavaScript clicks the original submit button. And possibly what's happening there is our JavaScript that's submitting the form on behalf of the user submitting the form, it's not triggering CKEditor's behaviors. And I bet if we fix that, I bet that would solve that problem. If it is true that this problem only seems to occur in dialogues, I bet that's what it is.
Is there anywhere else that we have a CKEditor in a dialogue that we can test? What about views like global text? That has a rich text editor on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, if it's one that has formatted text in it. Yeah, so there's a global one that has raw text, and there's a global one for formatted text, I think. And
Maybe
that would be a dialogue.
See if that has the same problem.
Okay, so Tim, maybe you don't need to go hunting. If it really is just in one specific place, it might be good just to clarify that the problem doesn't occur when saving a node or anywhere that's not in a dialogue. And if you can find a second place that occurs in a dialogue, that'll really say.
Well, I just tested today. I just tested today in like a page node, and it was not a problem.
Okay.
I was able to save in source mode. If you want me to do more testing in other places, I could. But
yeah, you could
I did
also,
that one.
because you can create a custom block not within a dialogue as well. You can go to the blocks UI and then add a custom block that isn't within a layout. And if that saves as well, I think that it's clear that it's not a problem with that particular form. It's the dialogue that's causing the problem.
Got it. I will try that.
Okay. Yeah, these are all great issues. let's see, what number is that? 1259 was that particular issue. I'm going to put that into the agenda so that we have a record of that. Editor, not saving in source mode. Okay, great. Thanks, Tim. Okay. Well, let's go on to 117, which is the next minor release. So that's where we're putting in our new features and functionality. We lost one on here. There had been one that Doc Wilma had been working on, but it's not in this list. I can't remember quite what it was. I'll pull that in, but
The context one.
yeah, the context one. That's right. Custom context.
Yes. And layouts.
Yeah. Okay. So Jen, you've been working on using the administration form for the login page, and I know it's ran into a number of snags. What's the status on that issue, which is 4410?
I think it's on hold until we can resolve two blocking issues, one of which is removal of the view, the administration theme permission, and the other one is the ability for a single layout to affect multiple paths, which I don't think I have linked here. But I think if we can get both of those issues resolved, then we'll have a path forward on the other one.
Okay, so that is, did you mention the issue numbers?
Remove the administration theme permission we're about to talk about next. Allow a layout to be selected on multiple paths is number 1528.
Oh, I see, down here. Okay. So yeah, let's go right into removing the administration theme. What are your thoughts on that issue?
So I set up a pull request that removes the permission. I thought I grabbed it everywhere, but some tests are failing. So I think I might have missed a couple of places. The only places that I found were using it is we had defined that permission on a bunch of tests. And there was a couple of places in layouts that checked it. And those are the only places that we're using it currently. So the patch was pretty clean. It was like remove it from 3 places in layouts and 18 places in tests, and we're good to go. But because tests are now failing, I'm gonna go check other things and make sure that was all that needed to be changed. I also created a contrib module called view administration theme that provides the permission, but nothing else. So that if your site needed that permission to do something else or depended on it, you would have a way to get the permission back. But the module doesn't do anything other than add the permission. So I was wondering if that module should alter the behavior to check the theme for the permission before it does it, in addition to providing the permission, rather than only providing the permission. Should we do the thing that it's supposed to do?
Yeah, it definitely should. It'd be kind of like a light version of theme key almost, where it's like, if you don't have permission to view it, but the current theme is set to that, then swap it, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that will be done on that contrib module, right? So it doesn't need to block the core
Right.
queues.
Yeah.
The core queues, yeah.
So I started to do that, and then I was like, I don't know, maybe it just needs the permission, maybe it doesn't need, but okay.
It should make it work the same way as it does right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think probably in that issue, although I'm in favor of this, it is kind of, I wonder how it weighs against our policies on backwards compatibility, because it is definitely a change. But it's like, but it's a good change.
It's like removing the overlay module. It was a good change. So
yeah. So it's a good change, and I think that a compromise that might make me feel better about it, and hopefully, you know, bring us in line with what we try to achieve, is that when you update, you're at least notified that that permission has been removed. If you want it back, then you can install this contrib module. So kind of as a prerequisite, I think we need to have the contrib module and a release for it in order to incorporate this feature into core.
Okay, so and then I was thinking that too. And my initial thought was to put the notification in an update hook so that people would have to run the update and then it would say this permission is being removed if you need it. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, or each time that a such permission is called, we can register something in dblog with Watchdog and point, because Watchdog allows you to provide a link to the contributed module.
I'm not sure if we can.
I mean, for backwards compatibility, as in
Permission.
remove it after 2.0.
Oh, I see.
As in-
Deprecate it. Like
Yes.
leave all of the checks in core for the permission, and then have the contrib module literally only provide the permission, and you won't have to change anything in core.
But then we wouldn't fix our problem that was blocking the other module, the other change.
Well, the permission. Oh, I see. Because the permission, they would never have access.
Right.
Because they couldn't even turn it on, the permission. Yeah, because we would have removed it from the UI.
Now no one has access to it ever.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it starts to get a little bit messy.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to, in order to really make that work, you'd have to say, if the module exists and they don't have permission, otherwise just don't do anything, you know? Like if the module doesn't exist, then yes, they definitely have permission.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to use if module exists checks in core for contrib module.
It's not without precedent. There's another place in core that does that already. I can't remember which one it is, but
there's not just one place. I remember a couple of places at least.
This is a good trivia question.
Yeah, which modules, which contrib modules are mentioned in core? Yeah.
So there's a few things where the parts of the vel module are being required or shown in the user interface of views, like views UI, the settings, where we ask which region, and there's a debug region that was provided by, anyways, long-standing. I always see it and it annoys me. It wasn't a problem when views was in contrib, because that was a contrib module, but we got it into core and that we inherited that. But yeah, anyway.
We have 2 minutes left.
Okay. All right. Well, we can keep going. So
let's not talk about layouts and multiple paths because there hasn't been any progress on that one.
Okay.
Layouts support for custom context. Did we talk about that already?
Not this week, and it looks
Not
like
today.
there's been some comments between.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of comments on this issue, but I'm not caught up. Tim, are you?
Well, my last comment was I'm going to get out of this because I don't understand it.
Oh.
Every time I think I do, I do have one or two what I think could be helpful clarifying questions. So, Jen, you made some comments about splitting the UI off, and I'm wondering, does that mean you're suggesting that we not have, in this PR there be no UI at all?
No, I'm suggesting that we create a follow-up issue that's like fix the UI, but that this change is mostly like uncommenting all of the code that was in there before that had been commented out to enable the feature. But we know it's going to be confusing, so we have a second issue where we can actually go through and say, what language should we use here? How should this appear? Should we put first or second? But sort of separate that from this so that it's not blocking.
Okay, well, my only concern about that is that I think if we put it in with the existing UI, it would just be confusing, right? So do we want to make it any better? I understand that there might be like minor changes and major changes in a separate UI, or is there no changes, right? But like putting it in the way it is, to me, is just like, if I saw this.
So is the part that makes it more confusing?
Does it mean anything?
The add context button.
What?
So I'm just wondering which part it is that you think makes the interface so much more confusing. Is it the fact that before this change, you didn't see context at all until they were added automatically, and now there's a button or a link that says add context, and you don't know what that does?
Yes.
Is that the problem? Okay.
And I think, and this is probably minor, and I don't think this is what you were responding to, but the description here, I think there are some minor changes in that could be fixed. For example, Doc Wilmot says most wildcards in the path will be associated with the context automatically. To me, it wasn't at all obvious that he was talking about the path above, right? Like that's describing something in a different field. And I think we could reword that to be more clear.
I also think we shouldn't use the word wildcard when we mean placeholder.
Sure. Anyways, so there are those kind of minor changes that would be a little bit helpful.
Yeah.
At some point, I think Doc Wilmot provided an explanation of what it's going to do, and it was in Zulip. So my first reaction was to add it as a comment in the issue. I didn't do that. I'll go back and do it because in the future, each time that we close a ticket, I'm not sure if anyone else does, but I do. I think that this should be a follow-up. Like take that comment or whichever explanation the people that worked on it provided and put it in some documentation. It could be in the API documentation or the user guide about layouts. But the simple explanation with the examples that Doc Wilmot provided was like, yeah, it made me understand a little bit better of what this feature is about.
Okay. So Tim, I think if you want to do recommend those changes in this issue, I think that's fine. But I think that we might need another follow-up issue that's like contexts are confusing. How do we fix that? And it could be a bigger change than just some updates to some text on the current layouts page.
Yeah, it could be a documentation issue, actually.
I mean, I'm still to suggest anything because I just don't. Every time I feel like I understand this, then I learn I'm missing something. And so like trying to make changes, I feel will be futile because I don't really even understand what's going on. I mean, the big misunderstanding I'm not having right now, just to throw this out there, it's because I haven't elaborated the issue yet, is Jen, you in last week's meeting talked about this as a way of restricting the fields or block would be available. And that made sense to me. But when I go and I play with it, I don't see it doing that at all. So, and you said that again in the issue. So it's like, I don't understand what you mean when you say it's restricting the blocks that are available. And also you seem to be saying, like it seems to me that obviously doing is it's field blocks available, depending on the context of the situation, right? I think you're saying that it's doing more than that.
Yeah, so that
more
you're
than that it's
exactly
doing.
right in what you've noticed that it's doing, but you've only noticed one like subset of things it's doing.
Sure.
So I think that like your understanding of that part is correct. It's just there's stuff that you can't see that's also happening. Like a context not only provides the field block, but it provides all the other blocks that also require that context, and what those other blocks might be. It could be different on any site based on modules or what configuration they have. But it also provides visibility conditions. So like when you're on node/%, it gives you options to choose like what node type. That option for choosing what node type isn't available on user/%. Instead, there's like a user role option. So there's other stuff that's kind of hidden until those contexts are there that also shows up. So there's a bunch of different stuff that it does that I think is important. And I'm not sure, like context is like everything. And you're like, oh, I found one thing. And you were recommending changing the label from everything to one thing. But I'm like, but there's other things. And I don't know that it's necessarily important that everybody understand in every interface all of the things that are going on. But finding some way to make sure that we're not limiting what people think it can do is good. But I do think like contexts are confusing, like just in general.
So what
there is I think a larger discussion that we should have around how to.
So what you were saying now, Jen, about visibility conditions being, some of the visibility conditions being tied to context makes sense. And I've never thought about it before. It totally makes sense. And I'm wondering how we can capture all this information into a documentation page. And then once that, would everyone feel comfortable if we already have some help text under the context bit, like the table? If we added a link to the documentation with some examples, and we mentioned that a few examples where this can be used is one, the thing that you just mentioned, like if you want to provide a visibility condition that is tied to the user, then you need the user context if it's not provided. That's why you would do it. And then Doc Wilmot's example from Zulip. So if we make sort of like a collection of 3 or 4 examples like that and put it in documentation, then we can link to it and people would be able to understand it.
Okay, I think that sounds good.
I like that idea of, I mean, we do it in a lot of places where there's something too complicated to explain within the application. And plus linking to online documentation also makes it easier to update, you know, and managed by the community.
Yeah.
So I'll start a new issue so not to block the existing one about documentation. And I'll grab all the comments that have been made in Zulip and I'll try to capture what you just said. Then if I don't remember it, I'll just rewatch the video. So good.
Okay, well, let's yeah, kind of wrap things up. We have a wish list here that we can leave for next week to discuss possibly.
Yeah, I think all I really wanted to highlight today is that this is a list of things that I would really like to work on. A lot of them are small and we can probably get them into 117. One of them, cache tags, is probably not small. But I would love some prioritization on what or in what order I should work on them in terms of what you guys think is useful between now and 117.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the personalized lists, but I really like the list of the low-hanging fruit that you put there. Maybe we should do that every week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like because especially now that we don't have a lot of features for 117, we could make this a release that is focused on fixing, you know, annoying bugs that have been long-standing and, you know, the low-hanging fruits. So I really like that section there.
Okay, we don't have our initiative leads here with us today. Jeff for telemetry and Luke for ready to wear. And since we're already over time, let's just table that for today and say that's it for the meeting. Thank you guys for coming. And yeah, thanks everybody out there who watches these videos. So, okay.
Yep. See you guys.
Okay, bye.